The Colosseum is one of Rome's most iconic attractions. Completed in the year 80 AD, this engineering marvel stands as one of ancient Rome's greatest achievements. But west of the Colosseum lies another Roman landmark whose carvings contain scenes and images related to the Bible. Known as the Arch of Titus, this stone memorial provides important insights into the text of Scripture, insights that make an important connection between faith and fact. As the Republic of Rome expanded its borders in Europe and Africa, it was also conquering land in the east. In 63 BC, Pompeius Magnus invaded the land of Israel and brought Judea and its capital city of Jerusalem under his control. 100 years later, longing to throw off Roman rule, the Jewish nation revolted and fought bitterly against the armies who had occupied their land. But the Roman machine was too great, and the famous military leaders and soon-to-be emperors Vespasian and Titus reconquered much of the territory and laid siege to the holy city of Jerusalem. After many days of brutal fighting, the beloved city of the Jews fell, and the temple was robbed of its costly furnishings, brought back to Rome, and placed on display in a victory march through the Forum and up to Capitoline Hill, where sacrifices were made to their god Jupiter, the protector of the Roman armies. The Jewish historian Josephus describes the parade as follows. The spoils in general were borne in promiscuous heaps, but conspicuous above all stood those captured in the temple at Jerusalem. These consisted of a golden table, many talents in weight, and a lampstand, likewise made of gold. After these, and last of all the spoils, was carried a copy of the Jewish law. In 81 AD, in a brilliant display of propaganda, Domitian, the newly appointed emperor of Rome, constructed this triumphal arch in memory of that parade and dedicated it to his brother Titus. Its purpose was to remind citizens not only of Rome's great military achievement, but also to legitimize the divine status of the Flavian dynasty and Titus as a god. An inscription above the arch reads, "The Senate and people of Rome dedicate this to the divine Titus Vespasian Augustus, son of the divine Vespasian." The interior vault is coffered with a central representation of the deified Titus being carried to the heavens by an eagle. The side panel of the arch displays important moments in the parade when Jewish captives and spoils from the temple in Jerusalem were put on display, including a menorah, sacred trumpets, and the table of showbread. Across on the other panel, a scene depicts Titus in a triumphal four-horse chariot followed closely by the goddess Nike, who is crowning him with a laurel crown representing victory. The chariot is preceded by official attendants known as lictors and accompanied by symbolic representations of the Senate, the Roman people, and the god Roma. Each of these scenes and what they symbolize, along with the dedicatory inscription to the emperors and their divine status, give us important historical background material to the cultural practices of the era and the challenges that the Christians faced living in cities where emperors of Rome were worshipped as a god. These scenes also have a bearing on interpreting the book of Revelation by seeing that Christians, instead of Titus, will ultimately be given a victory crown, but not one that is made from laurel leaves, but rather an imperishable crown of life. It also seems likely that the four horses of Revelation chapter 6 are connected to the military power of Rome as seen in the many depictions of four-horse-drawn chariots on monuments similar to the one on the Arch of Titus. But this grand monument in memory of Titus reveals other important elements as well, elements that help us to illuminate the text of Scripture. For example, triumphal victory parades were not uncommon in the history of Rome's dominance, and so the imagery of these events was used by Paul in his letters to the church at Corinth and Colossae to give confidence and hope to Christians living in a world that had opposed and persecuted them. It could be that Paul was referring to these triumphal parades when he penned 2 Corinthians 2 verse 14 and Colossians 2 verse 15. In those passages, it seems likely that Christians are the spoils of war captured not by persecutors, but instead captured by Jesus, and that He proudly places them on display as those who belong to Him. And finally, the depiction of the Jewish spoils of war reminds us of the fulfillment of a prophecy made by Jesus nearly 50 years earlier that the temple would be utterly destroyed. It, along with the findings of archaeology at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, remind us that the testimony of the Bible is reliable and true. The Arch of Titus and the discoveries of archaeology is yet another powerful example of the connection between faith and fact right here in the land of the Bible.